Hey guys, good morning. Today we are starting new chapter, that is Luke chapter. Introduction. Author. The author's name does not appear in the book, but much unmistakable evidence points to Luke. This gospel is a companion volume to the book of Acts, and the language and the structure of these two books indicate that both were written by the same person. They are addressed to the same individual, Theophilus, and the second volume refers to the first. When you look at Acts chapter 1 verse 1, certain sections in Acts use the pronoun we. When you look at Acts chapter 16, 17, 15 and 27 and 28 also indicate that the author was with Paul when the events described in this passage took place. By processing of elimination, Paul's dear friend Luke, the doctor, when you look at Colossians chapter 4 verse 14, and fellow worker, becomes the most likely candidate. His authorship is supported by the uniform testimony of early Christian writings. Example, the Muratorian Canon AD 170 and the works of Irenaeus in 180. Luke was probably a Gentile by birth, well educated in Greek culture, a physician by profession, a companion of Paul at various times from his second missionary journey to his final imprisonment in Rome, and a loyal friend who remained with the apostle after others had deserted him. Antioch of Syria and Philippi are coming the places suggested as his hometown. Recipient and purpose. The gospel is specifically directed to Theophilus. When you look at chapter 1 verse 3, whose name means one who loves God, and almost certainly refers to a particular person rather than to lovers of God in general. The use of most excellent with the name further indicates an individual and supports the idea that he was a Roman official or at least of high position and wealth. He was possibly Luke's patron, responsible for seeing that the writings were copied and distributed. Such a dedication to the publisher was common at the time. Theophilus, however, was more than a publisher. The message of this gospel was intended for his own instruction, as well as the instruction of those among whom the book would be circulated. The fact that the gospel was initially directed to the Theophilus does not narrow or limit its purpose. It was written to strengthen the faith of all believers and to answer the attacks of unbelievers. It was presented to displace some disconnected and ill-founded reports about Jesus. Luke wanted to show that the place of the Gentile Christian in God's kingdom is based on the teaching of Jesus. He wanted to commend the preaching of the gospel to the whole world. Date and place of writing. The two most commonly suggested periods for dating the Gospel of Luke are AD 59-63 in between, and the 70s or the 80s. The place of writing was probably Rome, though Achaia, Ephesus and Caesarea have also been suggested. The place to which it was sent would, of course, depend on the residence of Theophilus by its detailed designation of places in the Holy Land. The Gospel seems to be intended for readers who were unfamiliar with that land. Antioch, Achaia and Ephesus are possible destinations. Style. Luke had outstanding command of the Greek language. His vocabulary is extensive and rich, and his style at times approached that of classical Greek, while at other times it is quite Semitic, often like the Septuagint, the pre-Christian Greek translation of the Old Testament. We can look at characteristics. The third gospel presents the works and teaching of Jesus that are especially important for understanding the way of salvation. Its scope is complete from the birth of Christ to his ascension. Its arrangement is orderly and it appeals to both Jews and Gentiles. The writing is characterized by literary excellence, historical detail, and warm, sensitive understanding of Jesus and those around him. Since the synoptic gospel, Matthew, Mark, and Luke report many of the same episodes in Jesus' life, one would expect much similarity in their accounts. The dissimilarities reveal the distinctive emphasis of the separate writers. Luke's characteristic themes include: first one, universality, recognition of Gentiles as well as Jews in God's plan. And second one, emphasis on prayer, especially Jesus praying before important occasions. Third one is joy at the announcement of the gospel or good news. And fourth one, special concern for the role of women. And the fifth one, special interest in the poor. Some of the rich were included among Jesus' followers, but he seemed closest to the poor. And sixth one, concern for sinners. Jesus was a friend to those deep in sin. Seventh one, stress on the family circle. Jesus' activity included men, women, and children, with the setting frequently in the home. Eighth one, repeated use of the messianic title, Son of Man. Ninth one, emphasis on the Holy Spirit. The 10th one, inclusion of more parables than any other gospel. And the 11th one, emphasis on praising God. Sources. Although Luke acknowledges that many others had written of Jesus' life, he does not indicate that he relied solely on these reports for his own writing. He used personal investigation and arrangement based on testimony from eyewitnesses and servants of the word, including the preaching and oral accounts of the apostles. His language differences from the other synoptics and his blocks of distinctive material indicate independent work, though he obviously used some of the same sources. Plan. Luke accounts of Jesus' ministry can be divided into three major parts. First one is the events that occurred in and around Galilee, and the second one is those that took place in Judea and Perea. The third one is those of the final week in Jerusalem. Luke's uniqueness is especially seen in the amount of material devoted to Jesus' closing ministry in Judea and Perea. This material is predominantly made up of accounts of Jesus' discourses. 21 of the 28 parables that occur in Luke are found in chapter 10 to 19. Of the 20 miracles recorded in Luke, only 5 appear in chapter 9 to 19. Already in the 9th chapter, Jesus is seen anticipating his final appearance in Jerusalem and his crucifixion. The main theme of the gospel is the nature of Jesus, messiahship and mission, and key verse is chapter 19 verse 10. Total chapters 24. Now we are discussing outline. The first chapter will discuss the preface and the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus. Chapter 1 and 2 explain. Under that, the annunciations and the birth of John the Baptist and the birth and childhood of Jesus. And chapter 3 to 4, the preparation of Jesus for his public ministry. In this we will discuss his forerunner, his baptism, his genealogy, and his temptation. Chapter 4 to 9, his ministry in Galilee. Under that we can discuss the beginning of the ministry in Galilee, the first tour of Galilee, a Sabbath controversy, the choice of the 12 apostles, the Sermon on the Plain, miracles in Capernaum and Nain, the inquiry of John the Baptist, Jesus and the Pharisees, the second tour of Galilee, the parables of the kingdom, the trip across the Sea of Galilee, the third tour of Galilee. And now chapter 9 to 10, his withdrawal to regions around Galilee. Under that we can discuss to the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee and to Caesarea Philippi. And chapter 9 to 13, his ministry in Judea. Under that we can discuss journey through Samaria to Judea, and the second one, the mission of the the mission of the 72, the lawyer and the parable of the Good Samaritan, and Jesus at Bethany with Mary and Martha, teachings in Judah. Chapter 13 to 19 we can see his ministry in around Perea. Under that we can see the narrow door, warning concerning Herod at a Pharisee's house, the cost of discipleship, the parables of the lost sheep and the lost coin and the lost son, the parable of the shrewd manager, the rich man and Lazarus, miscellaneous teachings, 10 healed of leprosy, the coming of the kingdom, the persistent widow, the Pharisees and the tax collector, Jesus and the children, the rich young ruler, Christ foretells his death, a blind beggar given his sight, Jesus and Zacchaeus, the parable of the 10 minas. So, chapter 19 to 24, his last days, sacrificed and triumph. Under this we can discuss the triumphal entry, the cleansing of the temple, the last controversies with the Jewish leaders, the Olivet discourse, the last supper, Jesus praying Gethsemane, Jesus arrest, Jesus on trial, the crucifixion, the resurrection, the post-resurrection ministry, and the ascension. So these 24 chapters we will discuss chapter by chapter in our Bible study in coming days. God bless you. Thank you.